Hello there and welcome to Why You Lost. This time, Chaos versus the Vampire Counts. This one's sent to me by Schmucky, so thanks to him for that. And he's facing Hank G at innercitycracksales.net. Sounds like a stand-up guy. They're going to be throwing down on the Altar of Darkness map, which is not the nicest map to fight on, shall we say. It's basically just a big hill, so if you want to use a lot of mobility and cavalry, they're constantly having to run uphill. So it's a bit of a pain in the ass, but the Chaos Army is 4 units of Horse Masters, a good strong skirmish cav. Got a little flanking party of Archaon himself as the Lord, an exalted hero, I guess as a kind of bodyguard, and the Swords of Chaos, a very expensive but pretty strong fiery melee cavalry. And the main force of his army, 5 units of Chaos Marauders, cheap and cheerful up front. Got some Forsaken as well, and Chaos Warrior Halberds. So that's all of his army. He's got his skirmish cav deployed up front, but not a lot of great options to shoot at this point. But the enemy army is 5 units of zombies up front, so nothing to really worry about there. 2 units of Cairn Wraiths behind, those are a little more dangerous, armor piercing, ethereal. 2 Banshees as well, the Sternsman, and double Vargolf. So got some strong threats on the field, a lot of ethereal stuff, got the regenerating stuff. And this army is being led by Stone Cold Steve Manfred. So we'll see what goes wrong here for Schmucky and what he does wrong with his Chaos. There's also some cheeky Chillgeists Vanguard deployed behind our Chaos army here, so we'll see what happens with those. So battle's underway. He's got his skirmish cav out front. Currently shooting the zombies though, which is probably a big waste of ammo because, you know, zombies aren't really worth anything. They're not that dangerous. The Chaos Marauders can deal with those. Save the ammo, which I think he is doing. I think he's turned them off fire at will now and he's getting away from them. These ones flanking around the side, going after the Cairn Wraiths here. Now this, I think, is your first mistake here because Cairn Wraiths, being ethereal, they have a 75% physical resistance. So they're going to reduce the damage of the Horse Masters by 75%. So that ammo, again, it's kind of being wasted, just as it is on the zombies, really. But don't get me wrong, Cairn Wraiths are a dangerous target that you need to take out, but that ammo could be much better used. So you need to look at the enemy army and see where that could be best used. So you look at the zombies and you say, well, these are cheap and rubbish. I don't really need to waste the ammo on those. Cairn Wraiths and Banshees, they've got the big physical resistance. Sternsmen I could maybe go for as long as I don't shoot them from the front because they got a silver shield. But guess who's the best target here? It's the little bat boys. They've only got 40 armor. 40 armor. That is perfect for the non-armor piercing ammo of those Horse Masters. So he should have flanked round just a little bit farther instead of going for those Cairn Wraiths and gone after those Vargolfs because he would have done so much more damage there. The other choice would be Manfred, which is what his 2 units at the front could shoot at now. They've got him there if they want him. So he'd be a good target. He doesn't have a shield. He's got 70 armor, which is a reasonable amount, but nothing too crazy. But yeah, using it on the Cairn Wraiths is a bit of a waste. So missing the opportunity to take out the Vargolfs there. Fireball coming in though, hits Manfred nicely, so that's a good target for the Fireball, as well as the Vargolf with their weakness to fire. Chillgeists sneaking around the back, which I don't think he's noticed yet, so they're sneaking up on him. A little flanking party just chilling out. Just the front lines messing around, still shooting these Cairn Wraiths, and you can see they've lost nearly a quarter of their ammo, both units, for about a quarter of the Cairn Wraiths' health. But in come the Chillgeists. He is going to notice in the last second and countercharge with his Forsaken. And he's actually going to do quite a bit of damage, but this is due to the broken nature of heavy cavalry at the moment. This 75% physical resistance unit just took nearly a third of its health lost from charging an infantry, which charged it back somewhat. How ridiculous is that? Those Chillgeists should not be taking that kind of damage from a single infantry unit on the charge. They lost more health than the Forsaken did. It's just a bit ridiculous. So this guy, unfortunately for him, not getting a great deal on his exchange there. And a similar thing is actually going to happen over for Schmucky himself with his Swords of Chaos and Archaon and the Exalted Hero. They're going to charge into these Cairn Wraiths, thinking they're going to do some good work on a quick charge and get out. We'll see what happens. Here comes Manfred, though, to save the day. The Vargolf's coming over as well, so he's going to get out of there quick time. But as you can see, the Cairn Wraiths have lost a tiny bit of health, maybe like a tenth. And the Swords of Chaos have lost nearly a quarter of their health. So a good exchange there again for the heavy cavalry. They really are pretty useless right now. So nobody looking like they're really going to get too much work out of their heavy cav in this fight, but that's not their fault. That's just a dodgy cavalry at the moment, I think. But we seem to be noticing a theme with this army for the Chaos that they don't have enough magical damage to deal with all these ethereal units. Archaon has magical damage, but the Swords of Chaos don't. They have fire damage, which is good against those Vargolfs, but not much use against those Cairn Wraiths, and the Exalted Hero is just normal damage as well. So they could dive on these Vargolfs and do some good work, but they've got to be able to get to them without all the ethereal units being over them. These Horsemasters could be shooting the Sternsmen here. They've got the backs of them to shoot, because Lord knows they're wasting their ammo on these Kern Wraiths. They've done some fair damage, but it's cost them what? Let's have a look. Over half of their ammo for both units has been used to take down half the health of the Kern Wraiths. It's just really not great use of the ammo. If you're going to shoot them, you probably need Flaming Sword of Ruin to give you that magical damage. The Banshees getting stuck into the front lines, trying to scare off the Chaos Marauders, which is not a difficult feat to achieve. Bit of a mashup over here. We've got the Swords of Chaos and the Chillgeist. The Kern Wraiths are coming in, but Archaon and the Exalted Heroes in there. There's a Vargolf in there too. Manfred's coming over. He is going to drop a bunch of abilities now, though, including Flaming Sword of Ruin, which is the perfect time to drop this spell, because you've got the weak to fire Vargolf in there. You've got the 2 ethereal units, the Kern Wraiths and the Chillgeist. So this is a perfect spot to be using Flaming Sword of Ruin. A nice use of this here. Although, of course, the Swords of Chaos already have the fire damage going, so they're going to get that little bit of extra damage on the Vargolf, but it gives them the magical attacks which can help them with those ethereal units. But Swords of Chaos, I have to say, are probably a questionable unit for this army, mostly because they're just overshadowed by the Summoners of Rage, who are just a really strong unit all round. They're anti-large, they have magical attacks, they have the Chain Lightning, and they only cost a little bit more than those Summoners of Rage. So I think they would have been a better pick here, especially with Heavy Cav being a bit rubbish at the moment. But for the most part, Schmucky is holding on okay here. He's still got his Chaos Warriors around. He's got his Halberds in here, trying to get after that Vargolf. He's got the other Vargolf wavering here, starting to crumble away. Archaon's on his case. Got rid of the Chillgeists, maybe. They're nearly dead anyway. But maybe just missing an opportunity here to take out this Vargolf. He's got his fiery Swords of Chaos right next to the weak to fire Vargolf. But I think they're still chasing a Kern Wraith. And then they're going to get pulled back. So he's going to miss that opportunity there. But that's just a... not quite a micro error, but, you know, just an awareness error, I suppose, just not seeing that, but he could have just been looking somewhere else on the battlefield at the time. Archaon, though, in trouble as the 2 Vargolfs and Manfred go after him. He is trying to get out of there as quickly as possible, though. He should probably use his Horsemasters to go into melee with all these units chasing, just to give Archaon some space. At least one of them could slow those 2 down nicely. But Manfred instead going to capitalize, putting some zombies on those 2 units, pinning them down, putting a little bit of hurt on them. Some of the Chaos Marauders going away. The infantry holding on fairly well, though, given all the spooky Banshees and stuff around. The Sternsmen, though, still in good health. They, of course, regenerate, so they're going to be a tough one to finish off, especially if you leave them that way into the late game. The Chillgeists, though, on their way out, Horsemasters trying to get rid of them, couldn't quite do it. But at this point, we can see what's kind of happening here, that he has the tools to deal with these regenerating units with the weakness to fire. He's got Archaon, he's got the Swords of Chaos, but he's not really used them too well to deal with the fiery units. The other issue is that he doesn't have enough magical damage to deal with all of the ethereal units, because there is quite a lot. 2 Kern Wraiths, 2 Banshees, and the Chillgeists. I don't think you really get much more than that. He's got Flaming Sword of Ruin, which has given him some magical damage every now and again, but it's not enough really, and there are some good options for magical damage in the Chaos roster, such as the Summoners of Rage, like I said, and also the Aspiring Champions have magical damage. Those could be a good choice here. Those could take out those Kern Wraiths very easily. Of course, you never really know if someone's going to bring Kern Wraiths, but Aspiring Champions are a good one in this fight, because not only do they have that magical damage, but they also have Inspire, or Encourage rather, so they can increase the leadership of these lower leadership units that'll get scared by fear, namely the Chaos Marauders. So a unit of Aspiring Champions in here would have been good. Fireball coming in there, misses, but does do a little bit of damage. Archaon in trouble again. He is going to get double teamed. His bodyguard is nowhere to be seen at this point. Don't know where the Exalted Hero is. He's got zombies spawned up on him now, so Archaon looking like he's probably going down. Oh, gets slapped by a Vargolf. He is going to rout by the looks of it. But despite this, does look like it's looking good for the Chaos Army, because they have a lot of units left and a lot of the Vampire units are dead, namely the zombies. But still the strong stuff of the Vampires goes on. Archaon running off there. Still got the Vargolf regenerating. Still got Manfred regenerating. Did manage to kill one of the Vargolfs actually, so good job getting rid of that one. But you still got the Sternsmen as well. But even though he brought the Swords of Chaos, which I assume he brought for the fiery damage, good against the regenerating units, he didn't really try to use them against the regenerating units. If he'd got a rear charge on the Sternsmen with the Swords of Chaos, with their fiery damage and their weakness to fire, he would have messed them up pretty well. Or if he'd honed in on one of those Vargolfs, tried to surround them with the Swords of Chaos when possible. Not easy, of course. Manfred was there making it difficult. Archaon there, going to go down though, so he's going to lose his Lord, and that is going to hurt his leadership. And unfortunately, he's not going to have enough left in the tank to deal with these big, large things that can just run away and get after everything. So, just a couple of mistakes here, really. not using the ammo really that well, not using his fire damage that well, and not having enough magical damage. Those three things, I think, are the cause of his loss here. He did alright micro-wise and moving his army and everything, so he looks like a reasonably decent player, just wasn't quite able to use all the tools that he had and was missing a couple of tools from his toolbox. So let's have a look at some numbers. Archaon, 2,700, very nice, did some good work with him. Those fireballs probably paying off. Exalted Hero, doing a good bit of work as well. Chaos Marauders, cheap crappy infantry. Forsaken, getting a reasonable amount done, although that may be a lot from that Chillgeist countercharge that they managed to get. The Halberds doing a little bit. The Swords of Chaos not really doing enough. 1,300 okay, but considering they cost 1,800, you probably want a bit more than that from them, which they probably could have got with all the Vargolfs and things around. The Horsemasters not doing too bad in their damage, but they definitely could have done a lot more with those vulnerable Vargolfs available to shoot. Manfred doing a fair bit of damage, not as much as Manfred might normally do. Banshee's doing some. Zombies. Kernwraiths didn't really get a lot done. He managed to keep those under wraps pretty well. The Sternsman probably tore through quite a few units of infantry. The Chillgeist not really getting a lot done. He did kind of contain those well. The Vargolfs, one of them doing okay, the other one not so much. So fairly spread out damage for both armies. A decent game, one that was definitely winnable for the Chaos here. Let's take a look at the army though and see what we could change to maybe make this a little bit more suitable for taking out those vampires. So this is the Schmuckian army as I believe he had it. Let's take a look at it, see what he had, see if there's any choices that don't really make sense, and try to fix any issues. Archaon, up first on his horse, that is essential, that's all good. He's got Kindle Flame, essential to have, Foe Seeker, not essential to have, and Stand or Die, essential to have. So good choices on those abilities, nothing wrong with that. For the spells, he's got 3, Burning Head, Flaming Sword of Ruin, and Fireball. Good choices, although Burning Head maybe not so much use against the vampire counts, as it's good for taking out long lines of light infantry, but the vampire counts don't really have that. It's only zombies, which are not really anything to worry about. Maybe Piercing Bolts would have been more useful here, but yeah, Burning Head on Graveguard, probably not going to be massively effective. It will do some damage, but maybe could have lost that spell. I don't think he even used it in this battle, but Flaming Sword of Ruin, essential to have, because it has that magical damage and fire damage that it can add to any unit, which is essential for the vampires, and then also Fireball, always useful as well. Got the Slayer of Kings, that gives Archaon some big damage. That's nice to use if you can get him into the right targets. I assume he probably popped that. And also the Crown of Domination. Increases leadership and immunity to psychology. Again, useful against those vampires with all their fear and terror everywhere. So good choices on all of these. The only thing, maybe the Burning Head could go or be switched out for a different ability. Didn't really necessarily need it though. But I think as Lord choices go for the Chaos against the Vampire counts, Archaon is really the best choice because he has both the magical damage and the fire damage, which none of the other Lords can bring. So Archaon, probably the best choice here. Exalted Hero, a good bodyguard for Archaon, had him on a barbed horse, had Deadly Onslaught, had both of his abilities as well, Hellfire Sword, which is pretty good because it imbues fire to him, so when he's fighting something that regenerates and has a weakness to fire, he can put some serious extra damage on them. And also the Mark of Khorne, just a bit of an extra damage boost and stuff there. So, all nice stuff. Nothing wrong with taking those abilities, I think. So, the Lord and Hero choices, all good. Frontline, Chaos Marauders, 5 units. That's pretty standard for the Chaos nowadays. That's fine. They'll beat up zombies. They'll beat up skeleton warriors just fine. Graveguard would give them some trouble, but you can help them out, and they can just tie things up anyway until then. But as I mentioned, I think some aspiring champions would have gone well here. So, we're going to lose one of those units of Chaos Marauders and try to get those in here because they can support that front line as well. If you mix them in with a bunch of those boys, the Chaos Marauders are going to get affected by fear. They're going to be at a constant -8 leadership. You can negate some of that with the aspiring champions. And also, like I said, they've got magical attacks, those aspiring champions, so they could be the choice to take out Kernwraiths very, very comfortably. They could also help with the Banshees, or maybe even the Chillgeists as well, but the infantry stuff, they could certainly deal with. Now to a unit that doesn't really have a place in this army, I don't think, the Forsaken. I'm not really sure why they were here. They're a nice damage dealer unit that are very fast, good for flanking, good for chasing after missiles and artillery, which obviously they can't do against the vampire count. So I'm not sure what his reason was for bringing these. I can't see any decent use for them, really. Maybe they were supposed to be anti-infantry, but taking out zombies is easy enough. You could use something that could deal with the Graveguard, but they don't have armor piercing, so they're not great for that job either. So really not sure why they were in the army. So we're going to lose those. Don't really need Forsaken here. Now, one unit of Chaos Warrior Halberds, an anti-large unit. This I like. Just the one unit is fine. You might think more because vampire counts have a lot of large, but all their large can just run away from these halberds, so they really only act as a deterrent rather than an anti-large killer. Now to those Swords of Chaos, who should be good in this matchup, right? They have the fire damage, and that is true. But one thing to remember with the Swords of Chaos is that they are a melee cavalry, not a shock cavalry. They're not built for cycle charging, they're supposed to stay in melee. But overall, I think they're overshadowed by their Summoners of Rage, who can just do a lot more for just a little bit more money. As I say, Summoners of Rage have the magical attacks, they have the anti-large bonus, both of which would be incredibly useful in this fight against the Vampire Counts, who have a lot of ethereal units and have a lot of large units. The only real threats of the Vampire Counts army is their large units. The Vargolfs, the Terrorgeists, Manfred on dragons, the Blood Knights of course. So yeah, more often than not, you'll be better off picking the Summoners of Rage than you will be picking the Swords of Chaos, especially as they have Chain Lightning as well. They can do some anti-infantry work with their Bound Chain Lightning spell. So yeah, Summoners of Rage should definitely have been in this army. I think they can just do so much more, and especially with Heavy Cav being a bit broken at the moment. Then we had the 4 units of Horsemasters. This, I think, is maybe just a few too many. I think 3 would be okay. Have them all go around together. They can be good teamed up with Flaming Sword of Ruin, the spell, so that you can give them fire or magic damage when they're shooting at certain targets, which would have been useful in this case against those Vargolfs and Kernwraiths. But I think what was really needed here was a Shaggoth, because Vampire Counts anti-large is pretty cruddos. They don't deal with large units very well, so the more of them you can bring, the more trouble you're going to give those Vampire Counts, and the Shaggoth is a great way to do that. It could have hunted down Manfred, it could have hunted down the Vargolfs, it could have hunted down the Chillgeists. Give it Flaming Sword of Ruin at the appropriate moment, and it's goodbye all of those units. And I think that's about it. I think that's all the changes we need to make. I like this army facing the Vampire Counts. I think that looks pretty decent. And honestly, I can't really think of any other builds to really try other than this. This just looks damn good. We've got all bases covered. We've got a nice bit of magical damage. And I think if you're either choosing between magical damage or fire damage to bring, magical damage should be the priority, because those ethereal units can be hard to deal with if you don't have the magical damage, whereas the weak to fire units can still be pretty comfortably dealt with. You're just missing out on a bit of extra damage to them. So prioritize magic damage over fire damage, I would say. But there we go. Why Schmucky lost, Chaos versus Vampires. I hope you've enjoyed this. Thanks for watching. See you in the future.